And as you're rolling in, I have to say it's an obligatory joke. I have to make that, not a joke, actually, a little background or comment that in HCI, it is considered auspicious to fly me all the way to India and do a class immediately upon landing, which is actually how we started our first session. In those days, we used to do the classes at 1 p.m. Pacific to 5 p.m. Pacific, which was around midnight, 1:30 in India. I'll fly into India, I land, I reach home, and then without doing anything else, I stay up for the 4-hour class at midnight. And I've done that, I think, 2 or 3 other times. It's become half of a joke because it's a very frequent occurrence in HCI. In fact, I think last year's final class was also finished the same way. I had to just log in from India. So it's and I am in Delhi. So it is, we have met this team's quota, and hopefully we don't need to make re-authenticate my presence in India. Nirupama, you're free to share now if you would like to.
So, all right. So should we do prayer first and then you will go through the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome all for Counselors of Hindu Tradition Session 5 2023 course. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Can everyone see my screen, please? Hello?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Nirupama, I was out busy muting everyone, so I think you got me.
Okay.
We are good. We can see your screen. It's all good. Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, we're seeing everything on the screen. Maybe this is fine. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so sit straight. So everybody's neck, spine, and head is in a straight line. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Close your eyes. Join your hands in prayer with thumb close to heart. And we do this prayer, and I will do the meaning of this as well. So take a deep inhale, exhale, and we do a Onkara sound. Sehna bhavatu, sehno bhunaktu, sehviryam karvavahe, tejasvinavadhimatastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It translates to Om, may we be protected, may we be nourished, may we work together with great energy, may our knowledge be radiant, may there be no differences or disputes between us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Join your hands, rub them, and put them on your eyes to energize them. Bow your head. And again, welcome to the session. Over to you, Gauravji, for if you would like to introduce the speakers.
Yes. Thank you, Nirupama-ji. Do you mind just going to the next? Yeah, okay. Actually, yeah, so what the format for today's session is, for the first half an hour, me and Puneetji and Dilip Bhai will just cover some of the top items that we had talked about in the videos that you've watched. And then we'd like to hear your presentations, which is a 3-minute presentation by everyone. Nirupama-ji will guide that. Dilip-ji, I'm also telling you what the format for this class is, because essentially we've given everyone homeworks and they're presenting back in the second part of the conversation. And at the back end, about the 30 minutes of the last 30 minutes of this call meeting, we will have space for question answers and reflections. And if anybody has not had an opportunity to speak up or reflect, that's the time to do it. Meanwhile, feel free to add your questions into the chat box and they will be welcomed. Today, we covered 3 lectures, Hindu 1000, Hindu 1008, and Scale 800. And Nanditaji, yes, Nirupamaji, you will, if you could type in the order, Nirupamaji, into the chat box, then everyone knows which order they need to be ready.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered 3 topics, very interesting and only loosely linked topics, but very important topics for our work in Hindu counseling. Nirupamaji, you can stop sharing and I can just talk through. It's not a problem. Yeah. Okay, so we celebrate, you can stop sharing, yeah. So we celebrate, okay, Ramyaji, welcome to this course. And you and there's a few other people that are new, and then this is their first session, even though it's our nth session. So welcome to this course. In this cohort, you're going to meet wonderful people. My name is Gaurav Rastogi. You're going to meet people in Australia, South Africa, US, as well as Finland, maybe France, Canada. So a lot of wonderful people from across the Hindu diaspora with diaspora generations of between 0 to 6 generations deep into the Hindu diaspora. So wonderful set of people here today. So welcome to everyone that's joining this discussion group for the first time. So as I was saying, we watched 3 videos and 3 different lectures. And they're very important to our work as counselors of Hindu tradition because they deal with wonderful and delightful things. Washimji, I'm going to mute you unless you have something to say. If you do, just raise your hand and we will come to you. And that's just easier. So otherwise, the sound bleeds over into the call. All right. So, when we think about chaplaincy and spiritual care, oftentimes we think it must be all, it's all heavy topic, right? Things, someone's in pain, someone's going to, hospital, all manner of negative life events. But that's not all that life is about. There are happy events that you also want help on and advice on. And we cover 3 of those topics in today's, in the lectures that you watched today. The first one is the 16 samskaras, which marks the passage of life itself, from before we were born to long after we're dead. How do Hindus mark the passage of time through the 16 samskaras? And the instructor for that is Dr. Amrita Srinivasan, who, by the way, he's a wonderful engineer. His doctorate is in engineering. He has written wonderful books. He's worked in heavy engineering, so he's written wonderful books and articles on engineering itself. But other than that, he's a wonderful exponent of the Hindu tradition. He founded a temple in his hometown. And if I find time, I will find a photo of me with him and his wonderful wife. You also meet his daughter somewhere during the course because his daughter is also a wonderful friend of HCI. She is Dr. Asha Shipman, who's the head of NACA. So Dr. Amrita Srinivasan founded the Hindu temple, but not just that. He has written several wonderful books on the Hindu tradition. Not just that, he officiates Hindu weddings. And he officiates Hindu weddings in a very, very interesting manner. He's an original researcher because again, like Kailashji said last time, we're all engineers. So most people are engineers. So we think process, that's what we're thinking. So what he's done is he's gone back to the root text. So for example, when he's describing last rites, he's describing from Garuda Purana. When he's describing the wedding tradition, he's going back to the Rig Veda and going back to an original authentic description of a wedding rites. From Surya's wedding, the son's daughter, not Surya, but Surya, his daughter's wedding. So he takes that process, the rituals described in that, and then there could be a 3-day wedding Hindus perform now because thanks to Bollywood, plus a traditional, right? There are 1-day weddings, but of course, when you're out there outside India, maybe you want a 1-hour wedding. So he performs those weddings, and it's a wonderful production. People appreciate it. There's another person we will meet, Shukwak Dasji, later in the course, who also officiates Hindu weddings. And when I met Dr. Srinivasan at his home, And he was very kind enough to sit down with me for a whole 2 hours. He's trying to get us to, he's saying, look, if SCI can create a 2-day program for me to teach how to perform Hindu weddings, there's a massive demand because the diaspora in the US is going up, right? He says, I want to teach you the shlokas. I want to teach you how to perform weddings. Not just the shloka, the chanting, the enunciation, but also crowd management, talking to the family before and after, and so on. So Dr. Srinivasan is also the author of Dummy's Guide to Hinduism. Now, Dummy's Guide is written for the average person. Dummy's Guide, if for those who are younger, you may not know this, but back when I was in college, that was the thing where everything was simplified and explained to everyday people through the means of these Dummy's Guide books. It doesn't mean that we've dumbed down the stuff. It just means that we've explained it simply. And he's written the Dummy's Guide to Hinduism book, which is a wonderful book and a fantastic resource for you to have. Because again, this is a person deeply entrenched in the, he understands the Hindu tradition. He's grown up in it, and yet has a process mentality. How he's working here in the West. So he takes both of them and articulates a very clean, non-dogmatic, and explainable to children explanation of the Hindu tradition. So you watched the conversation we had with him on the 16 samskaras, where he has methodically gone ahead and described most of the ones that are relevant. And if you haven't watched it, you should absolutely watch it, because and you should. I mean, I expect 100% people on this call have watched it, because that's how you're here. But I rewatch it every time I need to remember it, and every time I'm moved to tears by the degree of detail and love and caring that has been put into these traditions, into designing these traditions and making them poignant events for the family. So that was the first lecture that we heard, and Dr. Srinivasan talked also about which ones are the ones that people generally follow now, and what might be some ways of following that. We also had Swaminiji. Now, Swaminiji, Nirupamaji, is it possible to bring up her profile? You were sharing from the document, right? Swaminiji is actually wonderful. She's in the Bay Area. She's come to our classes earlier. She also teaches at GTU, which is a partner institute, and I'm sure doubtless saw the announcement earlier this week. Lokeshji, I'm going to mute you again, just making sure that, okay, there you go. All right. Nirupamaji, is it possible for you to share the...
Yeah, I will share the screen again because I stopped before.
Or one-page description.
Can everybody see?
Okay, sure, with the system. So her in the Hindu tenets section, she's from the same school, which is the Ashravidya system. But she did so she studied with Puja Swami Sri Dayananda Saraswati ji, and she's an Advaita teacher. She's her PhD is also an interesting PhD. So she's a doctor. She's a wonderful teacher, and as you doubtless saw from the class, this time we requested her to give a class on meditation and spirituality. We call her for other classes as well because she's a wonderful exponent of Advaita. And as you could tell from her teaching style, it's very listener friendly. She's describing it in very common language with a very light heart, but very precise. Because Ashravidya, very precise description. But this time we asked her to talk to us about meditation and spirituality. And I asked her to do that, especially because when we export words, sometimes they lose meaning. And when we use borrowed words, they lose meaning. So meditation itself, for example, is seen as a parallel word to the Indian tradition of dhyana and the attainment of samadhi. It is not so. Meditation is actually a word that originally implied meditation, just thinking about things. And so Marcus Aurelius, when he's writing his Stoic sort of reflections, he calls it a meditation, right? So meditations involve thinking. And the Hindu tradition meditation does not involve thinking of the same variety. We're not nursing thoughts. And a further reduction of the idea of vipassana, which is direct observation of the mind, and then simplifying it further. So vipassana, of course, is part of the yoga spectrum, but in the Buddhist tradition, it has a significant importance. And then later, when it came west through John Kabat-Zinn, he called it mindfulness, and then mindfulness has been quite the rage again for the last decade or so. Meditation and mindfulness are two different things. And in the Hindu tradition of yoga, there are different words that actually correspond to these. Now, Swaminiji is wonderful because she takes you through the experience, but she also talks about what we're doing, why we're doing it, why meditation is important, and how it's linked to spirituality. I have to check with Ushaji, who she and I have worked on the curriculum this year. Usually, I also teach a class on meditation, where I'm simply guiding you through a meditation session for those that are not familiar with it. I think I'm doing it, but I may be wrong. Ushaji can confirm. But the way Swaminiji describes it's filled with sweetness, which is amazing because in the Vedanta tradition, sweetness is optional. Right, you have to be very precise. But the way she describes it is filled with so much joy. And her meditation, she describes very beautifully the Saguna meditation practice in the Hindu tradition. Because in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which again in the West we teach Patanjali's Yoga Sutra as part of the yoga curriculum. But then we talk about tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. Tapas is deep practice. Deep austerity. Swadhyaya is a study of the self. And Ishvara Pranidhana, having a devotional affection for God or Ishvara, are essential requirements of this process. But when it comes west, because we are dealing with rational, scientific-minded people, we sort of ignore that part. We say, just pay attention to the tip of your nose or your breath or anything else. And so the meditation techniques that have been reduced over, from Hinduism to Buddhism to, Vipassana to mindfulness, they have continuously been reduced away from the broader, richer, and sweeter aspect of meditation in the Hindu tradition, where you take a personal deity and you visualize their form. They come to life. You bring them to life with your own imagination, with your energy, your own life force. And that divinity then provides you benediction and all the grace. That's the Hindu tradition. That's how the Hindu tradition generally works. But as it's been reduced into mindfulness, it's simply pay attention to something or the other and hold your breath or don't hold your breath. It becomes mechanical, devoid of all the sweetness and all the benediction that you can get. So Swaminiji's style, as I'm sure, as I'm seeing from the comments, was just amazingly beautiful, a total experience. And I enjoy listening to her. And if we had more hours in our class, I'd call her back like 3 times in a CHT program. She's so wonderful. All right, now those are the 2 lectures. The 3rd lecture we heard was actually even more interesting, and we have both the authors here on the bridge. We have Punitji, we have and we have Dr. Punit Mahendru and Dr. Dilip Amin. Now, Punitji, you already know, she's a resident faculty. You met her a couple of classes ago. Let me introduce you to Dr. Amin. Nirupamaji, we can stop sharing. I'm going to introduce Dr. Amin. Dr. Dilip Amin is a good friend. He's a good friend of mine, and I met him many years ago. And he runs a website which is Interfaith Shadi. And he has become, through the personal counseling of, it used to be 1,200, but I'm sure Dilipji is so hardworking, he would have probably increased the number to more. He has counseled interfaith couples, not with an objective of stopping their marriage, but to find ways to make it work. And then through his experiences, he writes. Of course, he wrote a whole book on interfaith marriage, which is a wonderful book. You're seeing the book right behind him. If you look in the grid mode, you're going to see Dilipji, and behind him on the right, you're going to see the book. And we will, Dilipji, if you could show us the book, maybe like a screenshot or Amazon, that'll be wonderful. And now Puneetji and Dilipji work together to create the Hindu marriage guide, including interfaith marriage. And the reason we did that is our tradition, because if you do it in India, everybody and their uncle and auntie are in your business. Everyone is there to provide you support and give you counsel. And generally, it's all all the soap operas, of course, drive all their business from this sort of these shenanigans. But now that we're no longer in India, we're part of diaspora, myself excluded because I have just come to India. But now that we're no longer in India, we need a way to communicate to our children what is the meaning of a marriage, right? What is the meaning of this relationship? And to go into it with eyes open. The broader HCI project, and Punitji, I'm about to transition the call over to you, so just be prepared. But the broader HCI project is not just to have a position, but also to create these authenticated knowledge assets. Punitji and Dr. Amin are experts in this field, and we've requested them to create authenticated knowledge assets, which are available freely on the internet. Anyone can use that. The reason we're doing this is if you belong to a church or a synagogue or a mosque, then your community elders will counsel you. You have to go through a counseling session with your community elders who will give you the talking to, who will go through this process of interviewing and conversing with you, right? We don't do that. And as Dilipji, I hope we'll talk about briefly today, we not doing that is terrible because, we lose, because the interfaith marriages are a fact. We're not going, we're not saying they're good or bad. They just exist. And it's important for us to tell our children what our tradition is and what it means. And Dilipji talks about, it's very controversial, but it's the right thing. He talks about no BBS, and you should ask him what no BBS means, because we don't know. The thing is, Hindus, because our system is so different, we don't understand that we are not a closed garden. Ours is like an empty field. You can walk through anywhere in the field, no one will say anything to you. But when you're in a walled garden, when you get into the garden, it's all good, but you can't come out of the walled garden. So for all of us from California, there's a song we wrote about it, which is Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Once you have accepted the credo or faith, and you have become a part of their religion, then you can't escape in many cases, right? You can't uncircumcise your children. You can't, your children can't leave the tradition. So to know what it means to get into an interfaith marriage and to actually have these conversations is critical. Because if you don't do it, then later you're going to have trouble, right? Or if you have trouble, it'll be more trouble than not having had this conversation. So that's the reason we requested Puneetji and Dr. Amin to talk through that. Now I've done the preamble. Puneetji, I'd like to transition to you and Dr. Amin to talk briefly about how you wrote the book, why you wrote the book, and what's going on. And Dr. Amin, I hope somebody will ask you about this no BBS thing. All right. Puneetji, over to you. You have to unmute Puneetji. Yes, you're good to go.
So, well, namaste everyone and welcome. I know I met some of you and I'm happy to meet everyone else today. So it was actually quite an interesting dialogue that we all had, and then I got to know Aminji and we all talked about this. So you, as part of your curriculum, you've probably looked at the three aspects of that we talked about. One was, of course, the interfaith marriage, and then there were some others was considerations before marriage. And then, of course, the last, which was just a summary of the main rituals that we have. So I have the distinguished pleasure or experience of having several interfaith marriages in our family, So, and I have seen different aspects, different things. And and the other piece that I have seen is that most couples really go into it without even considering their religious differences. And, it's something that sort of translates and manifests later on in their marriages the differences come up, which are differences in it's not really about the religious so much as the cultural. Sometimes it is about religious, and sometimes we think we are not religious, but then when there is, say, baptism or circumcision that comes into play, then I have seen the so-called non-religious person say, hey, why are we doing this? Why do you want to do this? And what do you mean we have to go through this? So we kind of absorb certain values, religious values, without knowing that we have absorbed it. And when the other partner wants those things, then there can be conflict. So that's one thing that I've noticed. So I'm hoping that as we talk to all of you counselors of Hindu tradition, or who are going to become counselors of Hindu tradition, that there'll be more dialogue about all of this, that youngsters and teenagers, and as they're dating, and then young adults as they're thinking about marriage, that these things are not going to be invisible and hidden, but they'll be really out there for people to hear in conversations and think about. Because I think that when we grow up in India, we take a lot for granted. We absorb our religious value through osmosis, but we don't have that here. And to bring it out in the open and have that discussion, and just facilitate more of those conversations in formal and informal settings. Because I think, as Dilipji has pointed out, by the time someone comes and they are engaged and they come in hoping to get some guidelines from us, it may be too late, because they're so much in love. But having those conversations ahead of time, that look, there can be challenges, and and maybe talking about those challenges that people around them are experiencing, so that they can make a informed decision at the point of selection of the person. And both things happen. Sometimes these marriages turn out to be very good and solid, and there are partners that are very accommodating. Usually there is there is a tendency to really value the other person's religious beliefs, as well as value the family system. But in other situations, and these are all personal experiences within my family, but in other situations, there is initially people will show a lot of interest in things Indian, but then there's the gradual distancing and the gradual insisting on baptism, and the gradual, why do we have to meet your family every Thanksgiving, or why do we have to have everybody over to our house? This is too much work for you, and I don't want you to be doing all this, and for your extended family. So instead of being supportive, they may very well sort of give the vibes that they're not a team player, and in different ways. So how to kind of just have a dialogue and talk about these things openly is what I'm hoping that this will allow you all to do. Of course, as some of you will later on be doing volunteer work in the Anand Corps, there too, there may be calls coming in that are related to, people going through difficulties, or people going into a marriage. And so hopefully some of this information will inform you to address those calls later on.
Punitji, I have placed a link for I can actually show the Getting Married guide over here. This is on the HCI website. And you can just go to the main website, go to Seeking Guidance, and over here, Getting Married. And in this, you're going to see this wonderful wedding arrangement from an actual wedding. And there's an audio section. You can also play this. There are 3 sections over here. Everything is over here. You can download the whole thing, including these Q&A that are available to you. So everything is available, and you can download everything right here. So this resource is available to you right now as we speak, even as we talk. All right. Dilipji, would you mind please saying a few words?
Sure. Namaste. It's really so honor that to talking to you. I'm glad you are going to be a consultant. Now, when you are a consultant, you are out helping others. But remember that it's same thing true in my case. When you help others, actually you gain most. And that is very true in interfaith marriages. Yeah, I understand your daughter may be right now 5 years old or something like that. But if you start taking interest right now and start helping people in interfaith love relationships, by the time when your daughter come and tell you, Mom, I'm in love with Muhammad, instead of normal case, you get freak out or make all irrational comments that why Muslims, you cannot trust them. I mean, you don't fall in interfaith, meaning you make totally irrational comments. She says, hell with you, Mom, I don't care. I'm going to do what I'm doing. So if you start taking interest in this field from now, and you don't have to do intensive work, but if you see somebody's interfaith relationship, read my video, books and all that, and start getting them in engaged relationships. Now, my own survey shows 38% of Hindus marrying to Abrahamic, meaning Christian, Jews, and Muslim. I mean, 38%. So probably 70%, I mean, somebody can extrapolate 70% of our children may be dating in college one or other time, and somehow half decided not to. So it's a very high chance your son or daughter will be dating Abrahamic. So it's very important to know. Now, what is the main fundamental issue? As you know, Hindus are pluralists, meaning Iswarala Terunam, there is one God, all religions are same, which is 100% wrong to tell this way, because all religions are not same. The other three religions, as I mentioned, they are exclusivist, supremacist faiths, meaning there is only one God and that's my God. So when Hindu says, I have 100 gods, the other, let's say Muhammad, who is in love relation, who is the classmate of your daughter in college, he says, well, I have only one God. And then once relationship go further, question comes up that why don't you, sort of indirect way, that why don't you accept my God? I mean, for our love. And our daughter will think that, wait, I have 100 gods. I cannot even name them. One more God, come on over, no problem. But what the other party is telling, he's not telling to add one God. They are trying to remove all your 99 gods or number of gods. So what is the solution? Solution is actually very simple. To be just what we are, and that is we are pluralists. We just have to tell our daughter or others that, look, we believe in equality, 50-50. One day we'll come to your mosque, other day you come to our mandir. And third day we will go to church, whatever. Because that's what we are, open-minded. And as soon as you be firm on that line, that 50%, I'm not going to settle for 49%, nor I'm going to ask 51%. Meaning then they cannot ask you for conversion because that's 100% deal. If you do those things, your daughter or son, whoever is in relationship says, Mom, you know, normally I don't like you are racist or whatever. I don't like your opinion, but here you make sense. Okay, I will talk to the other party, and why not 50%? Everybody likes to be equality. So if you present it this way, all of a sudden Hindu side will be in so much win-win. Because I have seen that actually 70% of Christians, I may be wrong. I mean, they are good people. All the Hindus, they marry to other Christians. So, I mean, I don't see any major problem with that because they come to our mandirs and do everything. But the problem is, how about the rest 30%? In case of Muslim, I will say 90% of Muslims will want Hindu to convert to Islam, even fake convert. So bottom line, if I make it close, it's very simple. Just be who we are. We are pluralists. You learn to be pluralists. Exclusivists, supremacists, my God is superior, you are kafir. No, those discussions has no place. 50-50, are you ready? Settle for it. If not, get lost. So that's my message. I have summarized it a long way in the book and so many other things. And anytime, if you come across your relative or somebody in love relation, reach out to me. I will coach you what kind of questions ask. And slowly, you have to have a lot of patience. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to find out all the facts and guide them properly. But if you start doing it now, when time comes in your own case, you will be well prepared. I always say that it is like a COVID vaccine. You take it once and you'll be covered for a long time. Thank you. Namaste.
6 months, 6 months. Diljit, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I want to finish this introductory piece by telling you a little anecdote about Dilipji. When he talks about having patience, you do not know the extent to which this man can have patience. He once sat in a 6-hour meeting where people were bad-mouthing India, Hindus, and everything. Literally, that week for about, what was it, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, if not lesser.
Yep.
For a very brief moment before he was shunted out.
Gauravji, we are having trouble hearing you.
But Dilip has that degree of patience and on a side look up. All right. My connection is the one that's broken.
Yes.
Okay. BBS. Dilipji, could you talk about BBS quickly before we move to the presentations?
BBS, yeah, the BBS is the ultimate visible sign of their exclusivity. When the other party, when they say, yeah, we respect, yeah, they come to Diwali party, but that doesn't show what is the truth. Are they really exclusivists or supremacists? So one good thing about Abrahamic faith, the Christian, Jews, Muslim, that they really want this way or that way. You have to make up your decision. Is it a black or white? There is nothing gray in those religions, at least in terms of religious fanatics or religious exclusivists. And that is BBS. Christian will want baptism, Jews will want bridge ceremony on day 8th of the sun, and the Muslim will want Shahadat conversion or Sunat for son. So those are BBS, and that's a clear borderline that yes, you are with us or not. So Hindu just have to say that, sorry, I don't believe in BBS. I will come to your church every week. I will do everything. I'll be even better Christian than you are, and I will do everything, but I will not baptize my sons and my grandsons and all that. And you just stick with that no BBS. If the other party is religious fanatic, right away you will find it out that they will keep on insisting, and ultimately they will just run away. That forget it. This Hindu is a little difficult to crack in. So bottom line, no BBS is such a beautiful secret, or other way to say that 50-50%.
Yeah. So thank you, Dilip Bhai, for describing that. I want to say that, look, we are not fanatics. This is not our position. Our position is simply that, and we're also not saying go create trouble in a wedding, in your family, or in an advisory thing. What we're saying is that be aware of the direction from which trouble usually shows up. In an interfaith wedding, usually the trouble. And again, the wedding guide is not just for interfaith. Specific to interfaith, trouble generally comes from these directions. So it is better to talk about it before trouble arrives. Patanjali says, "Hey, dukham." When you know trouble is heading, do something about it by talking about it up front. Walking away from that conversation is not going to be very helpful, because eventually it'll come around, right? And when it comes around, it'll only create more chaos because it hasn't been discussed before and so on. So those are the things to take care of and take into account. Again, my audio is not clear. I apologize for that. All right. With that being said, I will now transition it back to you, Nirupama ji. You can guide us through the scholar presentations.
Thank you, Gauravji, for beautifully introducing our speakers. I myself really enjoyed going through the meditation again with Swaminiji's video. It was wonderful. And knowing about all sanskara, and I believe all our scholars probably would have enjoyed all lectures too. Thank you, Punitji and Dilipji, for summing up. So now we move on to presentations by scholars. And I think with South Africa group, because it is past midnight there, so we would take up first Darshana ji. Every scholar who is presenting, please restrict to 3 minutes. And I might just wave you or just send something in chat when you should about be finishing. So with that, over to you, Darshanaji from South Africa Group.
Namaskaram, everyone. We're a diaspora which came predominantly from the farming and merchant communities, and the political climate and non-existence of community structures and limited access to India meant our ancestors executed basic self-managed processes when we talk about samskaras. So it's only later on with the establishment of temples and the need for trained priests, that priests came from India. Obviously, people from South Africa also studied further. So we've been left with some knowledge and practice of samskaras, and those that are practiced possibly are not practiced in the prescribed manner. But the basic observance of, for example, going to a temple or observing a small puja in the home to express our gratitude and seek blessings for the onward path is something that happens in South Africa fairly regularly. We appreciated the knowledge and the listing of the samskaras, but I think we would value the understanding of the science behind each of them a bit more. We've not been practicing those which we do not know of, and also possibly those that we were not able to make relevant in the setting that we found ourselves. But we agree that knowing and understanding can give current and future generations an option on how to engage going forward. Several questions and perhaps a few controversial statements came up as part of our discussion. I'm just going to rattle them off. Does it matter whether samskaras are performed or not? And how much does it matter? Can you observe some and not others? Is Upanayana for everyone? How does caste and family background come into it? Is marriage an institution, as an institution, necessary? Why marriage at all? What's our position on divorce? And then a small comment, we noted the male-centric nature with interest. Some of us agreed that we feel that culture and nurturing of culture and the value system is predominantly upheld by women in the community. Even in our African-based communities, this is true. So it seems odd to empower males with knowledge more than females. I know that's changing now, but yeah, the history was interesting. We also had some discussion and debate about the need to understand rituals before engaging in these, especially in this information age. And while we agree that it's essential, for me, there is an awareness specifically that sometimes doing brings understanding. I'm a dancer, and the principal process of learning is through surrender. Do, and the answer reveals itself. So discarding just because you don't understand is not sensible always either. Our closing was that we have done and engaged with samskaras here, what we have in the spirit of celebration and blessings for a healthy and meaningful life. And we are glad to be in a process of learning and interrogation regarding the relevance for our communities. With regards to question 2 of the homework, I won't dwell too much, but we talked about many symbols, and we noted that familiarity and understanding of particular icons resulted because of our frequent engagement with these, allowing natural curiosity to begin the questioning and understanding journey. With regards to the key issues to be discussed pre-marriage, these were fun. I'm just going to list them quickly. We agreed wholeheartedly that pre-marriage counseling is essential. I myself am married to an Irishman, 20 years almost, and it's interesting. I don't seem to have, and I didn't seem to have the difficulties before, but because the questions were asked: finance, religious practice, who am I, who will I continue to be, what will our children be, if anything at all, food, rituals, sharing of responsibility, living arrangements. One of the very important things that was raised is it's important to know beforehand, or to talk about beforehand, where will we go when we have conflict? Because in the moment of conflict, there isn't always, and maybe the auntie and uncle they are not the correct people. So and parents may have an emotional vested interest. It may not be the best advice. So to predetermine the manner and that we will engage in conflict resolution is something to talk about possibly before. And the need for self-care, and while we need couple time nowadays versus the extended family and social circle time, self-care and alone time is important to develop your own self within the relationship. I know meditation was not posed as a question, but we loved Swaminiji's presentation of the material, how she's just, what can you say, beautiful, easy. She just, yeah, that sweetness is I think the right word Guruji used. Even her manner, I wanted to climb in the screen and kind of hold on to her and say, please come home with me. Because there's so much to learn. The learning was, it's been an interesting week of learning. I think many of us engage on some level with a meditation practice. And we did appreciate the questions, especially posed by in the video itself. They were questions which were similar in our hearts, and they were answered, and we'll probably continue to explore those. So it's been an interesting week. I'm talking fast to try to get everything in, and I think we talked a little bit about having enough time to process a lot of the material. I think I find questions are coming up now about something that happened in week 1. And that's a very interesting churning that's happening for me and for us here in Cape Town. And I think, thank you for the opportunity and for sharing the space with me. Namaskaram.
Thank you, Darshana ji. Yes, we agree there are more questions than answers after listening to those. And I think that's the way to go, because then we can all participate in discussions. Thank you very much. With this, we go to the next speaker, Himani ji from Sydney Group 3. Over to you, Himani ji.
Namaste, and thank you so much. Darshana ji, that was just wonderful. Like, really enjoyed your talk. And we did have our group did get together. We had a very brief discussion about all the 3 topics that were covered. And we really appreciated like learning about the sanskaras that we discussed. We understood that we all come from India, and it has been a journey in Australia itself. So people who have got connection with the Hindu community and who are regularly engaged, obviously it gives them more connections and understanding and carry on the Hindu traditions and the sanskaras. So we talked about like thread ceremony, we talked about others as well. The whole point was that, okay, we have got this, but there are people who may not be engaged with the Hindu community so closely. And in those places where we find the challenges, that the wisdom which is contained within the sanskaras is not really propagated, because there's not much understanding, there's not much study, there's not much connection. So that connection was very important with our own roots, and that can happen in different forms, like with the community itself. We realized that in today's world, it is important to make it more relevant as well. It is not like going from, because we don't have so much of understanding. For us, it was more important to understand the purpose, the value, the significance of how these sanskaras actually contribute towards celebrating life, enjoying healthy and meaningful life. So that's where we were. And remaining connected to the Hindi community was important in order to keep going with the traditions and understanding, and then propagating to the future generations. We thoroughly enjoyed, and of course, Swamiji was very heart-touching. It was an enriching video, and we. Spirituality and meditation, we all thought it is quite personal experience, and that is something Swamiji as well mentioned, that you can't really teach unless you go through this journey yourself. And we understood, like, our take was spirituality is like connection with the source, and then how So what does it really mean? And then when we look at it, we understood we start to develop our understanding that we all we come through different environment, we develop our worldviews, we have likes, dislikes, identification, and mind is constantly judging. And this happens over period of time. And then we talked about some challenges as we go through this, and every human life is full of trials and tribulations and challenges. And that is when sometimes, and when people in despair, for example, and they start questioning and reaching and searching for what is identity, like what is my true identity? How am I really defined here? And we really appreciated discovering one's own identity. It might sound very simple, but then it is a transformative journey. Like that's how we looked at it, that spirituality is something we go on this path, and then it is just a transformative journey that we keep working through our self-reflection and our self-realization. And it's not a goal really, but we just carry on with it. So eventually we thought that when we continue on this journey, one would experience profound peace and abundance in the universe and being one with the universe. And that went to Satchit Anand. So as we practice more and we are into it, and the meditation practices, and we learned a lot. And there is no right and wrong. There's so many different ways of doing practices, basically. We also discussed in Sydney, like where are the spiritual centers? So we touched based on that. And we thought that eventually life is a beautiful flower, it's a fragrance, and we need to nurture life with all these beautiful sanskaras, with all these beautiful meditation practice. And as we grow and bloom, we can give this fragrance to others. But for that, we need to keep looking within, because when there are challenges, when there are conflicts, like we are talking about conflict resolution and marriage and everything, that's where when it becomes very important. It was finally, we also like understood that we are not certified marriage counselors, but it's an opportunity for us through this study and through going understanding better those conversations to happen. And like I personally believe that it is so important to get these conversations before rather than after in terms of marriage, and probably the world will be a more beautiful place, because currently the divorce rate is pretty high, so we can definitely do something if we continue to look after our younger generation. And it was really heartwarming. So yeah, short and sweet. That's from Sydney Group 3. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Humaniji. Can I request everyone please to be short, and then so that we can finish everyone. We have got most of the groups presenting today. So the next one is Updeshji from Sydney Group 2.
Yeah, namaste everybody. Namaste everyone. I am from Sydney Group 2. Presenting today topic. We have discussed, Sydney 2 group had discussed today's topic. For today's topic regarding sanskara. Regarding sanskara, our rishis and acharya given us these rituals to be conducted, so that our life and our present life and life after we have a meaningful life to go on. These rituals makes the impression on our consciousness, and these sanskara gave a spiritual touch to the important events we are doing in our lifetime at the different stages of our life. We have 16 sanskara this helps us to achieve the spiritual nourishment because our sanskara have the baseline, that is the spirituality. So this gives us the peace of mind, and we expect the sanskara will lead us to the moksha. In Dr. Srinivasa, in his video, he mentioned that because we Hindus are not baptized like other faith, even the Supreme Court of India has also given the judgment on this, that we are Hindus because of our way of life. So this sanskara we have is becoming, because with the passing of the time, sanskara has to pass on to our coming generation. What we are experiencing, what we are doing today, we expect that our sanskara has to pass on to the in the coming generations. Regarding experience, I have experience of attending in my family and in the family of relatives and friends, few sanskara, but with the time, my observation is that the traditions are changing its original purpose of the feeding spiritual nourishment. The method and the way of performing the ritual has changed with the time, and maybe at some point of time we may some point of time we think that these are losing its value because they are becoming more difficult to carry forward in the next generation, because maybe the lifestyle or the fast pace of the life, or so much media effect, Bollywood effect. There may be thousands of factors, propaganda behind it, spreading negativity against our culture in the society. But it's the education which we would like to educate our coming generation, or would want to like to educate ourselves with our traditions and with the performing puja as we do. I thank to the HCI, Kailashji, Gauravji, and the whole HCI team, those who have thoughts and bringing up these thoughts and giving the shape of the organization to this thought process of passing this tradition to the coming generation, that I feel is yes, the need.
Sorry, could you please just sum up in half a minute, please?
Okay. So this all what I feel, that the education is the only way that we can pass these traditions to the coming generation. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to all the HCI members. Thank you.
Thank you, Teshi. So now we move on to fourth presentation, which is from Naveen Ji from Group 10.
Namaskaram, everyone. This is my first time presenting. And for Group 10, they decided to just throw me in the ocean, see if I sink or swim.
It's a hazing ritual.
It's a hazing ritual, yes. So my understanding was that I'm to present the summary of our discussion and not necessarily the answer to the homework. So I'll provide the summary of the discussion. So we discussed all three parts. On the discussion of the 16 samskaras, We spoke about how a lot of us had exposure to these samskaras, but without any explanation to them. And we spoke about how in some of our experiences, pujaris were rather impatient people with a lot of authoritarianism and, not really interested in explaining anything, but rather rushing us through the ritual nature of these different rituals and rites. Then we spoke a little bit. I'm in an all ladies group. So we discussed the fact that there's a greater emphasis on boys and men in these samskaras and not enough on women. And our discussion then led into also that the Gayatri mantra was kept as a secret from women. And it led to a conversation also about Sabrimala, which is a temple in Kerala where women are not allowed. But at the same time, we also spoke that there are, the male and female energies are different, and there are sometimes some rationale for some of these things. And then we wondered about how our future generations will really learn any of this when we ourselves don't have much explanation on this. So that's something that we need to change. On the marriage guide, it was very useful, the distinction between becoming a marriage counselor versus being prepared to offer some pre-marriage guidance. We found the talk extremely valuable. And also the 3 guides that were provided were also very valuable in terms of the questions to ask before marriage, etc. And the guidance that, although trying to become marriage counselors would be very tempting, but it was very useful, the guidance from Dr. Puneetji, that to stay away from these unsolvable problems that will be put in front of you if you go down that path. And then finally, on meditation and spirituality, we greatly appreciated the value of meditation as the definition that was provided as connecting to God, cleansing the self of raga and desha, connecting to now, and rediscovering one's true infinite identity, which was fantastic. And then we ended the conversation talking about different meditation practices and how one should not judge the results of their meditation, and rather just keep meditating. And that is exactly 3 minutes. So I'll stop. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sticking to the time. And you definitely didn't seem like presenting first time. So congratulations. Okay, so now we move on to Western Australia Group 1, and Shankarji would be presenting that. Over to you, Shankarji. Thank you. You are muted.
Shankarji, you're muted, so we're not able to hear you.
Shankarji, you are muted.
Can you hear, guys?
Yes, affirmative.
Namaste, everyone. This is Shankar from Western Australia. Western Australia. My 3 minutes starts now. All right. So we had a nice chat with my friend Shashiji. Other guys couldn't make it. With respect to the samskaras, it's so astonishing to know that we have a lovely traditions that was being followed, but then somewhere down the lane it got diversified, kind of, I'll say. But then it's nice to know that the Christian, the Baptist life and the mission, basically, baptism inducts a child into the faith. Confirmation confirms that induction to identify with the life and the mission of Christian faith, and they are very serious about it. So why are we not serious about it? That's what another point that we are thinking out. We are really blessed with our ancestors, rishis. That quoted as bliss is our birthright, and also it can be accomplished with our samskaras. So basically, respect our culture, tradition, serving to the nation and society. Shashiji said, like, if our body is a hardware, then samskaras is a software or the operating system, which at those times was perfectly uploaded for thousands of years ago to make the best citizens for running the kingdom or nation, who are excellent career-wise, intellectually, socially, morally, best of the jobs. By these samskaras, they felt that we feel that purifies our mind at different stages of life. thereby keeping any kind of antisocial transformation of vikaras or social justice disease at bay. Samskara nurtures spiritual traditions, knowledge, keeps the society in discipline, and keeps everybody keeps them humble. For example, if you see our ancient rishis discovered the element mercury to make rasalingam, building of marvelous temples, monasteries, excellence in astronomy, astrology. If you see Ayurveda, yoga, it all the achievements that Bharat has produced in the past thousands of years, it's all because of samskaras that they had in one or other way, directly or indirectly. Samskara balances all purusharth, basically. With meditation, we are very humbled and inspired by Swamini's lecture. We understood that Corona, we could always find positivity in negativity, like Corona became Karuna for us. Meditation is Ishvara-centric, which is what it should be. And then we love the fact that Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. So Parvati ji and Parameshwar ji are our parents. Otherwise, my 3 minutes are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
So the next one we move to Bhavesh ji from South Australia group. South Australia.
Namaste, everyone. Yes, namaste. Me and Ocean ji, we did discuss all the 3 topics. So the first question came even in mind was why the need of 16 sanskars. Then we follow up with a question. Then why is there a need of us to sign a document in front of the marriage registrar? You know, what are the importances of each? And why do we need them? So in terms of 16 sanskars, you know, for us, before we get to know more into depth, we were quite small. You know, it's a Garbh sanskar or, you know, your Karna Vidhi sanskar. All these sanskars are done when you're quite small. So we never get that opportunity. But one we looked into was the wedding or the Viva sanskar. And how there's the variation amongst the Hindus, you know, the marriage is quite different from across the geographical regions. You know, in some instances you'll have Sat Feras, you know, the 7 Feras, or some will have only the 4 Feras. Why is the distinction, and how was the impact of Bollywood on our weddings? You know, you have such a beautiful occasion, and it's an auspicious event that's once in a lifetime event, and you have, you know, the Pandit over there with his mantras and everything, and on the other side you have a DJ who is playing Om Mangalam or some Bollywood music, and you're dancing to the Bollywood music and not listening to what the mantras are all about. So then we lose the focus or the importance of the 16 sanskars. Also, one of the things that Navinji mentioned here, and it just clicked into my mind, is, you know, the power that the Pandit holds, or the Pujari or the Brahman they hold, because they're in charge of that ritual or whatever they're doing. Has that have an impact on our caste system? You know, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the Shudras. So what is their impact? Because they are holding on the religious knowledge and taking into saying we know everything, so, you know, the rest become less powerful, or what's the impact? On the other question, we discussed about the variety of symbols, god and goddesses, and so in particular we picked on Om. Om is the first pranav sound, you know, the pranav nad, and I think most of our mantras start with Om. So even our class, we start with Om, Sahana Bhavatu. So the mantras, everything start with Om. And in Gita, Lord Krishna says the syllable Om, he's the syllable. Also in that's in chapter 9, I think, and in chapter 17, he also mentions about Om Tat Sat, which is again the beginning of everything. The third question, the key issues or essentials to be discussed before marriage, we had a long list. But some, I'll just mention a few, like what does religion mean to you? What about each other's family? Like, how are you going to get interconnected with others? What does celebrations look like for you? Looking from Hindu perspective, after every 2 to 4 weeks, we have a kind of a celebration and utsav happening. There'll be Diwali, after that there'll be something else. It's just follow-up. So with interfaith marriage, then there are issues, and if you're two from the same, then it's workable. Other questions were around what are your non-negotiables, what you can allow, what you can't allow, and what's the deal breaker for you. Whilst doing my further research, I came about something new that was on wedding. So there are 8 types of weddings within Hinduism. So there are the Viva, and this Brahms, Asur, Gandharva wedding, all Rakshas and Bishchat and all this. So it was quite interesting to know these different kind of weddings and how they sit with us. When this particular question came into mind, saying, in the syllable was the key issues essential to be discussed before marriage. So what kind of wedding will that classify as a love marriage, or as a Brahma wedding or Gandharva wedding? So those kind of questions. And yeah, that's what we discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaveshji. We now move on to Group 3 India, Jayashriji. Jayashriji, you are muted, please. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Namaste to all. So our group also discussed the Hindu Samskaras, the Shodasa Samskaras by Dr. Srinivasan. All of them are very meaningful, but not followed for a number of reasons. I mean, especially abroad. For instance, my daughter and my son's wife, both of them had babies very recently. And if in India, the Namakaranam would be done on the 28th day. But what happened there was they also did it on the 28th day, but in the hospital itself, they had to give the name of the baby for applying for the birth certificate. So see the difference in how it is being followed in different places. And then the video by Dr. Puneet, ma'am. What she said is perfectly correct, 100%, because there's no point in going for this marriage counseling or couple counseling, because most of the time when they actually seek us for counseling, the issues are very serious and are most of the time unsolvable also due to various reasons, like partners having personality issues and having various preferences. And her advice was to go for premarital counseling. Actually, I just joined a course of premarital counseling, which is done by the government of Kerala, and it is a 3-month course. So, I mean, I was happy to know that it's better to go for that anyway. Then the third video was of Swamini, and her meditation was really awesome. Of course, the class also. Her advice to go within, the importance of meditation being God-centric, Saguna Brahma Vishaye Manasa Vyapara, and the question of us being connected or disconnected, which is the correct one, or what do we feel about it, and the ways we could get connected. And she emphasized the importance of meditation and the various ways in which we could do it. One is through Abhyasa and Vairagya, and the other one Abhyasa and Vairagya, and why we feel disconnected. What we liked, about this was that in sleep, no one feels disconnected, and there is no notion of alienation also. So maybe that is the reason why we all like our sleep and find it very difficult to awaken from sleep. Then another way was Nama Japa. That was also another way to go within. Then her advice to cultivate Shraddha, trust pending understanding, and how there was a promise made in Bhagavad Gita, Shraddhavan labate jnanam, cross the doubting mind by the crossing the bridge of Shraddha. It was a really awesome session. Thank you. That was all we discussed. Namaste.
Thank you, Jashriji. We now move to Nandita ji, Group 6 from US. Over to you, Nandita ji.
Yes, namaste everybody. So our group meets on every Wednesday, and we discussed, we came to the conclusion, like everybody else, that all the 3 videos are very valuable to watch. And while Dr. Srinivasji's talk has a lot of information, we think we need to buy his book or other books and try to learn more about how the rituals translate into real current life, and how can they, how do they correlate in terms of the well-being. The other thing was, these 16 sanskaras are not just simple rituals. They must correlate to the human. We want to know how they correlate to the human developmental stages in terms of not just the biological age, but spiritual and psychological goodness also. So that is something we feel we must spend a little bit more time on it. They're not just simple rituals. So understanding them more and then articulating them in a better fashion to the new generation, next generation, who really does want to learn, but it has to resonate with them. You have to explain it in such a fashion. So while talking about that, I shared one experience about how the Annaprashan, simple, you feed the rice pudding, but actually one priest recently told me that it is very convoluted process where they are kind of invoking and there are 13 digestive fires. So they're invoking those fires within the body by the process of the Annaprashan, so that this will last through the lifetime. So that was new. Then the Jata Karma, where it was new for me to find out that this was a custom that was part of our ancient Hindu traditions or Vedic times, that the father is cutting the umbilical cord, because here in US, this is a norm. So I guess these people are following some Hindu custom that we did not know. So that was nice to know. Of course, we enjoyed Swaminiji's lecture a lot. Her puns were very, very thought-provoking, like, coronavirus, and then the U-turn, you make a U-turn to go within yourself. And then her redefining of the I, such as taking it from egoistic to situational to relational, and then finally the devotional identity. I think that was pretty good. And then talking about the feeling of disconnection from Ishvara leading to all these sorrows, and why the disconnection itself is not real. So that was very illuminating, I felt, we all felt. The acceptance of, through meditation, freeing oneself and the others around us from any unmet expectations was also thought very, it was eye-opening, even though our eyes were closed during the meditation process. Dr. Puneet Ji's marriage guide was packed with so much information. And we read more after going onto the HCR website, as she had suggested. It was useful. And the end piece where she discussed that the idea of kindness being a bigger virtue than honesty really hit home. We will be more conscious about verbalizing discontent. If we have to, then we should do it with kindness, and also kind of reconsider and forego if there's no benefit in it. So ultimately, I think we discussed and we came to a conclusion that the connecting thread in all these 3 videos was how to live well, even how to live in bliss, whether it's in family setting, career setting, wherever, or even with yourself. So that was what we enjoyed about this session a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandita ji, for beautifully summing it up. So next we move on to group 7 US, Dr. Divyaji.
Hello, namaste. Good evening, everyone. Hope all of you are doing well. Happy Friday and happy Saturday to all of you. We did not get the opportunity to really do a discussion this week, unfortunately, but I just wanted to introduce our new team member, Vanjani, and so we had an opportunity to speak with her a couple of days ago. So I wanted to just like from a personal point of view with regard to the samskar, I talked about my younger brother's Upanayanam ceremony, or the thread ceremony, in the Tamil Brahmin culture, as all of you know, that in order to it is considered to be a ceremony that transition essentially for a child to into adulthood, and there was a lot of different rituals and whatnot. And I recall very distinctly that it was this month, 30 years ago, in November of 1992, that took place in a backyard home in Southern California. And it was a very interesting event because there were a lot of people, a lot of different rituals and everything that had to be done and had to be conducted and things here and there. And, you know, I do not recall a very the steps, like the specific steps for each of one of them. But what I do remember is that there was a place where, you know, there was the holy, I think my brother basically had a bath, and then he had to go and change and then into clothes. And then he sat with an older cousin of mine who already had his Upanayanam ceremonies many, many years ago. And it was overall a very interesting event. And one of the questions that was put into the discussion was asking what could be better. I cannot recall exactly what could be better, except I think it would have been nice if we had given the an opportunity to see what each part of the ceremony basically signified. In echoing what Hemani ji was saying previously, you know, there are so many different like a steps, especially in a wedding or in the various different other types of ceremonies that we do, that unless the person takes the opportunity to study it, it's like it can be very, very like confusing, and be it is really complicated. And you know, in our culture, Hindu, the rituals and the ceremonies and the meetings and everything can be quite complicated. So for the second generation people like myself, I was born and raised in California. I'm the first person in my family to be born outside of the in the United States, outside of India, and it can be very confusing. And people who come from my generation, basically, they would like to have an explanation of what each of the rituals and everything signify. But nevertheless, I very much believe that my brother, you know, he was not quite 13 years old. I think it must have been about a week or shy of his 13th birthday when this happened, and it was a beautiful and fantastic experience. So that's from a personal point of view. That's one thing I could remember very much at the back of my head. And I also remember the priest. He was a very nice man, and we had our family dog at the time. And then we unfortunately had to put the dog in the garage because you know, animals, even though however much we revere them in our culture, they don't have the same standards of cleanliness that humans do. So, but basically, it was like something that the whole family and everything got involved with. And I had relatives that had a lot of family friends. It was a pretty big occasion at the time. So with that, thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much, Divyaji. So next we move on to Group 9, Canada, Jagji. Over to you, Jagji.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste, and hope everybody's well. Our group discussed the questions, and these are takeaways from whatever we had discussed. First of all, the sanskaras. I would like to begin this short discussion. Most religious observances of milestone, most religions observe milestones of life with certain rituals and festivity. Hindus celebrate these crucial junctures by holy sacraments, which are called sanskars, which impresses upon the subconscious mind, inspire family and community sharing and invoking God blessings. And we came up with a definition of this sanskar. We sanskar, you see, the rishis, and they thought that there is some kind of impurity associated with birth. So it's a purification process has to go through from time to time. So it's a religious purificatory rite and ceremonies for sanctifying the body, mind, and intellect of the individual so that he may become a full member of society. Put in simple words, it is an outward visible sign for an inward spiritual grace. As a practicing member of this, and we are called upon to perform these sanskars, I can tell you offhand that the prenatal sanskars are almost non-existent. In the childhood sanskar, the only one that makes sense and people are calling us to do is the Mundan sanskar, the shaving of the hair. The naming ceremony is limited to, they call us upon to check the patras and check the nakshatras and see the beginning name of a child. In the educational sanskars, the Upnayan sanskar is the one that is relevant to the society. And of course, the Vivaha sanskar and the Antyeshti sanskar. So like one group mentioned already, there has been a little tweak in the, when you look at the wedding ceremony in the videos and so on. Ours, it's much the same, but there's been some tweak in it because the Bhawar, in the Bhawar, there are 7 circular undulations around the fire. That is one. The Saptapadi is the same. And all your other steps are simple and they are the same. And we take time to explain every step in a Hindu marriage ceremony. So the audience will know what is going on or they can be able to follow. And we also have what is omitted from the normal thing that I see is what we call a Sat Vachan, the 7 conditions for which a bride has to ask the groom, and when they answered it positively, they shift from one position to the next. And that other than that, it is almost identical. The video on the meditation, what my takeaway is, it's God-centric. And furthermore, it is a mental exercise focusing on breathing and mind control for the purpose of reaching higher levels of spiritual awakeness. And the last one is this marriage and this counseling thing. We are acting as a counselor. We are registered clergies. We are marriage officers. People come to us for all kinds of things. You won't believe it. They come to the pandit or the priest for all sorts of, the least problems they have, they come to us. And this is a good thing. That is what we are there for. And that is what we serve society for, the least things. And I am very happy and I am very grateful for those, the kind of questions, but most of these are not done. I have married many couples of different castes and different religions and different races and so on. And some of these things are not, you know, the bride and the groom don't feel comfortable asking us these things. But what we are important is a wedding. What kind of wedding do you want? Do you want a Hindu wedding? You want a Muslim wedding? Most of them settle for both of them. Most times they settle for both, or a Christian wedding and the Hindu wedding, and they both. But the other things and so which are very important to ask, like you know, in case there is any problem, you bring it out and say what these problems are. I'm very grateful for that because I want to add that to my list of things to discuss with them. But most people don't feel, they are very reluctant to discuss things like that, their money, how many children you would have, and all these things. They may not want to discuss those things with us. That is, you know, as a counselor, now that I know, we'll ask them these things, especially interfaith marriages and all these things. But I am very grateful for the opportunity together with the group, Rajji, and we discussed this, and this is our humble contribution. And I am going to look at those links there and see what else we can do to make it easier for people. Because we want to solve problems up front, not after. So thank you all very much. Namaste and have a good evening. Jai Sri Ram.
Thank you, Jagji. I have now 2 more groups. One is Victoria Group 2, and another one is South Africa Group 5. If there is anyone I'm missing out, please let me know. So with this, I hand over to Vaishali, Victoria Group 2.
Namaskar, everyone. Generally, by the time it's my turn to present, I see that a lot of things that we've discussed and that I've made note of for the 3 minutes has already been discussed. So I generally don't repeat those things. And that's why maybe my presentation is always a little bit smaller than 3 minutes. So with my group here, we also discussed about like 16 samaskaras and how they're important. And we obviously feel that they are important because they can imprint the, they can imprint the our subconscious mind with positive ideas, because obviously we start before the birth of a child. And we feel it's very important. But there are 2-3 things that we've noticed, which not noticed, we've discussed, which we feel is like, the Mundan Sanskar with few communities, it's only for the boys and not for the girls. Like, though I myself did it for both my son and my daughter, wherein it wasn't, my mother also questioned me regarding that, and my mother-in-law, since we didn't do it on either side. And I also have an intercaste marriage. It's not interfaith, but it's still an intercaste marriage. So we have a different things to, like, different traditions that we both follow. So I was also questioned when I did Mundan for my daughter, and then I had to explain them the reason. So I think it's also that there's not enough awareness of why we've done most of samaskars, and that's the reason, and then people have just come up with their own ideas that why we do it and why we don't do it. The other thing that we discuss is as we all talk about the male centric rituals that we have, and also when we do Siman Sanskar, which is just the baby shower or whatever. So in that also, when the priests ask for it, they ask for a happy, healthy firstborn to be a male, rather than rather than a female. When Mr. Dr. Srinivasanji was explaining, I just heard, and I thought, obviously, because I did not understand when my samaskar was done, my Siman Samskar was done, that that priest actually said to have, though I have first born as a boy, but that's just a coincidence. But it's I did not know. And also we only do this Siman only for the first child. We never do it for the second child. It's very rarely I've noticed, or wherein in Western culture, if you see they do the they do this baby shower for the first child as well, and for the second child or third or whatever, they do it for how much ever kids they have. The other thing that we also discussed is about how Srinivasanji said that like in old tradition, father used to cut the umbilical cord, which I think has gone off in India, but here in Western culture, obviously, father has to cut the umbilical cord. So obviously they have sort of I'm not sure if they've adopted that in Western culture or it's just become part of them since centuries, but it's sort of gone. We've lost that touch of cutting the umbilical cord, it's always a nurse or someone cuts back in India. But here, the father has to cut the umbilical cord. So that was about the samaskar, so that we all felt that it's more. And there was one more point that we discussed is after we have Vivah Sanskar, then there is a big gap in in our adult life where there is no other sanskar before we have the next one. For ourselves, obviously we have a child, so we have Simant and all the other sanskaras that we follow in our adult life after Vivah, but nothing for us in between. And I don't know if that's the reason that people go through midlife crisis, since there's nothing to nothing to bring the, I would say, order in the place, I guess. So that was one thought we had. Now, for going about the second, about the marriage thing, that everyone has said that yes, pre-marriage counseling is more important, not counseling, but understanding each other's viewpoint is more important than going through it afterwards. And so that we thought it was, we all know that divorce rates and everything is increasing, but there are other factors that are affecting it. And I think it's the mutual respect is important in any, whether you go for interfaith or you marry in your own faith. And yes, you have to discuss beforehand of what you are expecting out of life and what the other person is expecting out of life, and respecting each other's choices would be important as well. And the third thing that about the significance Hindu symbols, which obviously we feel that symbols, because before the language, the symbols came in place, and we all need symbols to understand certain things, and to it's even everywhere there's a symbol, if it's a political party or any group, it's mainly to represent a group. So I think symbols are important. And what we would like to discuss about is obviously swastik, because Bhavishji also already discussed about Om. So with swastik, there are a lot of different kind of interpretations. Some people say, like, all the 4 parts that the swastik makes, it's either like, describes the 4 yugas, Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga, and Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga.
Vaishali, sorry, please try to sum up in half a minute, please. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Oh, actually, I'm surprised that I'm more than like, I'm going to be overtime today because I'm generally very short. But yeah, so that was like, we wanted to obviously discuss about swastik and like, how dharma, moksha, kam, like, it all depends on the way you understand the symbol. And that's what I just wanted to talk about. But yes, it has been like, lovely insight from all of you. And I'm really glad we always do this discussion. It helps us when we do the assignments as well. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Vaishali. So
you.
now we are only left with one group that I know, and that is group 5 from South Africa. I have got a recording sent to me, which I would play. She was going to, this is Thimaji, and she was going to present, but then she got sick and she has taken some medicine and she wasn't sure whether she'll be able to wake up. So I would like to play, I will play it from my mobile, and I hope you all can listen. I will.
Is this an audio, or is it possible to move it to your computer, or you send it to me, I'll play it, and then
actually I can play from my computer. I have saved.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, that's all right.
Namaste all. I'm representing Group 5 from KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. My team consists of Shirinji, Premji, and Tanaji. Hindu Samskaras. Hindu Samskaras, or Hindu rites, are the ornaments that decorates one's personality. They mark the important stages of one's life and enable one to live a fulfilling life, complete with happiness and contentment. They pave the way for one's physical and spiritual journey through this life. Samskaras are performed from birth to death. Over time, the practice of these samskaras have been drastically reduced. My group agree that we have not been exposed to most of these samskaras. Some of the samskaras that we are familiar with are the birth naming ceremony, the ear piercing ceremony. However, this is done more for ornamental purposes, but it does seem to be a big deal when one is piercing a child's ear. Then we have the head shaving ceremony, the beginning of education, where there's puja done to Mother Saraswati, the marriage rituals, and finally the funeral and the last rites. Of the 16 samskaras, we exposed or practiced 6 to 8 of these samskaras. HCI does not expect students to delve into marriage counseling. However, premarital counseling is important. When two people are in love, they are oblivious to the reality that lies ahead. Marriage is entering into the unknown if there is no premarital counseling. The Christian faith has made provisions for this. However, the Hindu lack this thought. It is important for young couples to understand the rituals of the wedding ceremony. The need to understand each other's culture and value system is important. Simple food preferences could later on become an issue and cause for arguments. Both partners need to know and understand the support structure on both sides of the family. In marriage, communication is vital. Both partners need to realize honesty is important. However, don't be brutal and hurtful. Be tactful and kind with your words. Meditation and spirituality is a conjunction of the Vedas. It means to go within. Hindu meditation is God-centric and is a mental activity. God has no name or form. God is everywhere. Often we feel disconnected and alienated, which causes us much anxiety, depression, and sadness. We search for a connection. This usually starts at around age 2. And this cannot be resolved until one connects to the universe and find its source. Meditation helps us to repair the sense of disconnection. By chanting the name of God, we cleanse our minds of the grime of prejudices and preferences. Meditation is the cleansing of the mind, which brings us to the present moment and helps us to slow down the monkey mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirupamaji. The audio was a little muffled, so it was harder to follow along.
I know it was. It is
Yeah.
at my end like this too. So I think we can ask her later to send a much clearer recording, but it will be night there, so we cannot.
Amitji, sure. Yeah. Amitji, are you trying to say something? You can unmute and speak. Otherwise, there are a few comments in the chat that I would like to respond to as well.
Gauraji, when you address scholars, could you please make clear what is the expectation? Do we want them to include the homework questions or just their takeaway? I think some groups are taking it both ways. So
yeah, so generally we would like your discussion to be reflected in the class because you're essentially summarizing. Now, if you and that's fine as well. But this is not a pre-homework in that sense. Amitji, yes, you have your hand raised. You may please unmute.
Yeah, Gauraji, I'm just wondering, is any university teaches Karmakanda online? I'm in Australia. If the case, please let me know.
I'm not aware of any online programs. I know Gayatri Parivara, very friendly organization to HCI. They do it at Shanti Kunj. They do have people all over that teach it, but I don't know if they're doing it online. I apologize.
Okay.
If
So
anybody else
knows,
then
please let me know.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
Hey, Gauravji, sorry.
Yeah, Anuragji, please go ahead.
This is Anurag from, actually, I'm part of Gayatri Parivar. And
yes,
if you want,
yes.
I can send you all the videos and so you can practice online. It's really good. And even we have the book we can follow online. And we also have a kind of video where the mantra is spoken very slowly, so you can follow word by word. So,
Anuragji, but do you give a certificate? I think that's the main question. The book, by the way, Amitji, Anuragji is right. It's a beautiful book. It's very nicely produced, and it has very good detail inside it. But do you give a certificate, Anuragji? Does Gayatri Parvar do that?
There's nothing like certificate. I mean, it's just part of the Gayatri Parvar, and anybody can do the perform it. Yeah, but again, if I have to perform,
I'll talk to Chinnaji. I'll try to talk to Chinnaji.
But just quickly, I want to say it's like if you want to perform a marriage ceremony and you're part of Gayatri Parvar, yes, you can give a certificate to marriage.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. So there's a few things that I wanted to respond to on the chat, especially the male versus female dominant thing. I've already noted my comment. In Hindu tradition in general is very pliable, but it requires research, not random improvisation. The whole point of a tradition is that it's encapsulating something that works. And if you're always changing it, then what is the tradition? It's a do-it-yourself, do whatever you want, right? Then it has no poignance. The ceremony has no salience. It has no meaning. It's just a toy thing that you do, and then you're doing some, Bollywood style, like Bhaveji was saying, some random Sanskritish sounding things and nonsense, right? That it's not the same thing. That's just play acting. It is important to recognize that the tradition needs change and to investigate ways to bring about that change. For example, including, Upanayam for girls, for example, it's not disallowed. Now, it's not the norm, but that can change. We can work to change those norms. Specific to fire ceremony, yagna, right, or a havan, the male and female energy, the understanding is very distinct that those are different energies, that they need to be in balance around the fire. And typically you always want men and women together. You want a male host and a female host because of that. And that's because if you're a hatha yogi or a tantra, not tantric in the the Bollywood time, but if you're a tantra practitioner, then you know the distinct differences between male energy and female energy. If you look at Shivji, for example, in one of his forms, he shows up as Ardhanarishwara, right? Half female, half male. And if you look at those you know, if in a yoga studio, you see those chakra charts, right? With the snake going up to the Kundalini. The energy, there's like female energy, there's male energy. Everyone is represented in balance, but males have dominant energy of one type and females have dominant energy of another type. And bringing those into balance is a requirement for some of these ceremonies. This is important. I just want to state that it's a spiritual science requirement. It's not mumbo jumbo from that perspective. There is, of course, some property rights things that because property right rules have changed, the process must adopt. There's no question about it, right? And then there is, of course, some cultural tradition thing that, of course, can continue to evolve. So there are things that in the tradition that have come through. So the one thing I want to say is, it's not tradition if it's do it yourself, right? Then it's just something you just made up, right? Rules allow us to. So I'll give you an example from an unrelated sense. So just to illustrate the point, when you look at language, words evolve in meaning over time. If I use the word, if I told my mom I'm sick or this person is sick, then my mom would be concerned that that person is ill and they need medicine, right? But if my son tells me that this thing is sick, he probably means to say that it is wonderful and dramatically nice and cool, right? Words tend to change meanings over time, right? And so if you look at how in India, the languages, and it's true for every technical language, by the way, you have a technical language that does not change meaning over time because that's how you transmit. So Sanskrit was created as a means of transmitting over long periods of time, thousands of years, without this change from yuga to yuga, month to month, right? So now you have to deal with unchanging meaning and forever evolving meaning in common language as we talk. I gave you the example of the word sick, right? This is typical to everything that is vibrant and living. It has an unchanging part and a changing part, and both must be in harmony. The whole point of Sanatan Dharma itself is, Sanatan is that which is outside of time. Dharma is that which is forever changing with space, time, and context, right? Something that is never changing and something that is forever changing and contextual are both joined together in Sanatan Dharma. Change is built in, but so is a lack of change. I want to emphasize that because it might appear that, oh, everything is DIY. No, some things you should expect not to change because that's what gives them the long life, the longevity. But some things that need to change, and again, it is public pressure that allows us to change. It is recognition that some things are out of sync and that they need to change. And then that's how change comes by in any tradition. And in the Hindu tradition, generally the rishis and sages, people investigate ways of improving things. What we're doing at HCI is a way of improving something that has become off-center. And so instead of being sukha, it is now in a state of dukkha because the centers are not aligned. That's what we're doing. And that's generally true of tradition. So I just wanted to say that because it might appear that Hindu tradition is patriarchal or parochial or whatever English words you might throw at it. That is not the case, right? And we're not talking about the caste system here, but if you do talk about that, it's the same. It's a system which is forever in flux and yet forever unchanging. And that's the beauty of the tradition that we have. Let me, your hand is raised, so I'm going to pause and ask for your comment.
Gauravji, I just want to keep this brief. I'm sure we will explore all of this in detail as we go along. I want to put in a plug that I think it's very important because of the narratives that keep floating around all around us, for us to keep in mind not to bring the political interpretations and narratives into this, be it about a patriarchy, Brahmin patriarchy, or about neo-feminism that the Western Abrahamic lens that projects onto all cultures around the world. I think it's very important to de-link ourselves from that and try to develop a very dharmic lens and an insider lens as much as possible. So when I ask you a question about like, situations, change in the way we are organized as a samaj or a society, I am not operating from any neo-feminist theories or anything like that, more from a real struggle on the ground, more an emotional struggle that I see in some families as to how to like, address the situation that they have and the emotions involved. That's all there is to it. And with regards to the caste system, if I may just add this, that Varna and Jati system are not equal to the caste system that we've been following in recent times. And this is something that I think we can have some recommended reading to, unlearn what we know. Varna and Jati system is, I would say, is not to be spoken against. I would say we have to, that is the best way for us all to get better integrated as a Hindu Samaj worldwide will be to go more towards our Varna system if possible, and also see how we can decolonize from the caste system, because the one that we are following is something that has been tampered with by our colonizers of 1,000 years. It's something that very important for us to factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramaji, for that. Generally at HCI, we're avoiding getting into the caste system debate for the simple reason that A, it's politically overheated, and B, we are not trying to, so I'm going to finish my comments. I know there are two hands raised. The answer to the question, a poorly framed question, is always going to be the wrong answer. For example, if someone asks me, Gauravji, have you stopped beating your wife? What is the answer to that? Is it yes or no? And the answer is no. None of these it's a poorly framed question, right? And a poorly framed question must not be answered in the framework in which it's presented. That's the problem with the casting. That's why HCI stays out of it, because on the other side, Dilipji and I are part of the Hindu Speakers Bureau. There we are researching caste system till the cows come home, pun intended, but not here at HCI for the reason. All right, Branjani ji, your hand is up, and also welcome to your first class.
Hello, everyone. Namaste. Just wanted to make a comment. This whole samskaras topic, I did watch the whole video. And for me, my takeaway was that it helps with clarity and, and the importance of a life event. It provides that, as well as it provides sanctity as we to that life event as well as we go through it. I have also been very impressed with the 12 building blocks. And I started looking at the third one, which is the future-facing one. And I was just wondering if there will be future sessions where we might discuss on how we can improvise. And I know some of these are, going to be unchangeable, right? But there are aspects of it that probably needs to be improvised and made more relevant for this generation. And just a question about, is that something that we will be looking at future sessions?
So in fact, thank you, Ranjani ji, for that comment. And I know we're working against the clock here. HCI is doing a lot to improvise. They're bringing off chaplaincy protocols, spiritual care protocols, counseling protocols, and especially the guardrails that Puneet ji is at pains to point out at all points. Those are part of the improvisation, the improvement that we're doing, because those protocols don't exist in the Hindu tradition. The other thing is, the writing down of stuff, including, for example, if we ever do a wedding, how to perform a wedding, right? If you look at who's in this class today, you see 70%, 80% women, HCI's cohort. That's who's going to attend, right? And that's who's going to run these weddings. In the Bay Area where I live, right? One of the most sought after wedding performers used to be this wonderful, kind lady, Prabha Duneja ji. Prabha ji performed so many weddings, right? She was very loved. I mean, she unfortunately died a few years ago of cancer, but I've inherited some of her books, by the way, for those who know her, because she said, Gaurav, take these books. So I have a lot of the Gitas I showed you in the last lecture. Some of those were from her. The point I'm coming to is that we're always trying to improvise and improve. And I'm sure this will continue. Again, that was my overall point for the whole thing. All right. Okay, propaganda against rituals. There's a lot of, see, the thing is, there's a lot of comments there. Like Ramyaji was saying, I'm not responding to this modern framing of woke language or patriarchy or whatever, because it's useless to be defensive against that. Our stance as HCI from the beginning had been that we will stand firm on our own ground, right? We will stand proudly and firmly on our own ground, not in a way that says, look, it's Hinduism or bust, but saying, look, we have acquired thousands of years of wisdom, and we are proud of what we have received. If things need tweaking, we will be the first ones to tweak them, right? But we will not be apologetic for any of this, including Ramyaji, your comment on the caste system. I agree with what you just said, and that's been our stance in general, and that's Dilipji and I. When we discuss caste systems, that is also our stance over there. We will not defend it on the other person's framework. We will defend it from our framework. That's why having articulate people who understand what's going on is very important, which is why what you're doing, this conversation we're having, is very important. Rameji, you have a last question, and then you will close.
I will quickly close that. I think what I've got to say will be something that Puneetji here, Puneet Mahendraji, will be able to relate with. So the reason why we are constantly being pumped with narratives to a large extent from an emotional standpoint is something that I want to give a new education. This is not something taken off any book. This is just from my observation and understanding, is that the white people in the world were the chief colonizers. So what has happened is, in the process, they have destroyed whatever native cultures have existed to the large extent, which includes their own native cultures, and they have absorbed what has become as white supremacy to be their culture. So now what happens is that there is this chronic feeling of emptiness. So they are constantly trying to fill that emptiness, and that's why they keep pumping in new narratives, new things that will become their culture. So they constantly come up with these theories. So that's why it's very important for people like us who come from such native roots to recognize this and decouple ourselves from this, because they are trying to fill an emptiness that's never going to get filled. But in the process, it's only us who are getting disfigured and uprooted from our roots. We need to be conscious of that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rameji. Thank you. That's wonderful. Our time is up today. I really appreciate Nirupamaji, your fantastic handling of the class. I appreciate Dilipji, you're joining us. Puneetji, you're joining us in today's session. I hope you also enjoyed the feedback and the wonderful commentary. Dilipji, do you have anything to close with? And then we will then go to the closing prayer. Dilipji?
Really, I'm very proud of you all. It's a great journey, and please go and tell the world how beautiful Hinduism is. Best wishes.
Wonderful. All right. So, Nirupamaji, would you like to do the closing prayer? If you could pull it up, I can do it. It's all.
Sure, I can share my screen and then just bring up the prayer.
We will balance our feminine and masculine energy by, I can close and become a full complete process. All right, please sit comfortably. Sitting comfortably in any posture is fine. If you're sitting on a chair, make sure your feet are in full foot contact with the floor below. We're going to just breathe in and out gently, and then from our heart radiate out a sense of wellness and well-being and goodwill for everyone around in the entire universe. Sitting with the back straight, the back, neck and head in a straight line. The eyes are closed and the expression on the face is relaxed. The shoulders are relaxed. The belly is relaxed and free to move. Bring a gentle smile to your face and let it illuminate your consciousness. Now let the smile travel all the way into your heart. And here, let it sit here, bringing a sense of calmness and peace to you. Now as your heart thumps, let it radiate out a sense of goodwill all around as we chant together. Bring your palms together in Namaskar Mudra, pressing the palms together gently, touching the fingers together gently, gently touching the back of the thumbs into the chest. And now bring your attention to the hollow space between the palms, and there you hear the drumbeat of your heartbeat pulsating in your palms. Stay right here to this drum beat. We're going to chant Om once and then the closing prayers. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Inhale and chant. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take your arms behind you, grab your right wrist with your left hand and breathing in, stretch. Breathing out, bend forward in a deep sense of surrender. Come back up, breathing in. Release your hands, rub your palms together to generate some heat. And then take your warm palms and cover your eyeballs without pressing them in. Now massage your face and the neck with your warm palms. And then blinking, open your eyes and pull your palms back like an open book. Namaskar. The meaning of this prayer is, Om, may all be happy. May all be free from illness. May all see that which is auspicious. May no one suffer. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. I appreciate the time we had together. Thank you, Nirupamaji, for running this workshop. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. Thank you.
Thank you.